Okay, so normally I don't talk about this. I commented twice on Sir James Hoffman's video about uh Nespresso, in whatever the fuck, Nespresso, right? Anyways, point is, uh, it's like, well, I love the idea of the reusable stuff. I got to that point and I was like, that's perfect. 'Cause I commented like how it is that you could just innovate on the pod design. There's nothing saying you can't split the dang pod and effectively put a metal screen, a little filter that you can take out the filter, and whenever you want to change out the metal screen to or like clean it really, then you could do that, right? And then that's just like a little slidey bit. So it's like a you know exam, like a microscope exam slide or whatever. Just slide it in like a little stick, and then as you press it in, it press in the filter in the screen, right? Totally, you know, seems like it would work to me. But I was like, oh right, yeah, no. But you know what? This is a better. Then this is like, oh, you prepare for a week for the reusable, and then you're good to go. I'm like, why should I even care? And I kind of got sidetracked. But I was like, if you're gonna do it, right? But I was like, well, okay, what the market wants is essentially a full cup. And a full cup is 200 to 250 milliliters. This is the reason why they love this thing. And I can totally grasp why it is, because relative to us, regular people that aren't really significantly into the hobby, now I am, but most people, put yourself into mind, 200 to $300 for a coffee machine is really expensive. It doesn't matter if you say it's not that expensive relative to all this other stuff. To a regular consumer, it's insanely expensive, actually. I would be unwilling to pay this often, right? Like, you'd better give me something for this, is essentially what that tends to turn into, right? Whereas for us that are in the hobby, it's like, well, the fact that you just said that bothers me. Like, we are giving, you have no idea. You don't even know. You know what I mean? These people, am I right? But it's like, no, 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 they're not these people. These are just like you and I. They're just not very interested in it like us. And that's normal. That's simple. Easy to understand, normal stuff. It's just not their thing. But it is something that they want to enjoy, pick up very quickly, and I can understand where they would continue wanting, especially for like, well, I'd have to buy this grinder. I have to buy this WDT tool. I'm looking into this and this puck screen and these paper filters, and I have to get this tamp, and I have to get this basket, and I have to get the Ah, already don't want to. Everything about this, and no, and there's coffee this, and oh my god, I'm overwhelmed. Right? Like, obviously, no, I would never, right? It's like, you may eventually get there or may never. It's okay. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. That's not a big deal. But it's us at the mindset, oh yeah, that's not a big deal. Of course you'd do that. That have that issue often on that side of seeing their side. So it's like they want a full cup, right? Like, oh, this is nice, a nice little. It's an espresso, sure, sure, sure. It's not really an espresso, but okay, you know what I mean? Like, oh no, eh, it's an espresso. It's espresso. I swear, it's espresso. I am so over this. Yeah, like I can't, it's not espresso. I don't care. It's not espresso. But it's like, no, but it is espresso like, and that's okay. And we have things that are like that, like Alonges, Lungos, Sprovers, my espresso press stuff that I talked about, and for my own channel, for my recipe, what I was doing, and I'm like, well, okay, so we want it cheap, which means the same kind of price, $200, $300. They want it fast, 25, 30 seconds, minute most. They want to be able to have a full cup, which we're looking at the guy that totally understands the full cup thing. I love espresso, but I hate not having a full cup. So it's like 200 to 250 milliliters. So 200 to 250 grams, which is effectively what they measure milliliters as, is what a full cup really is. I don't care. You can never argue with anyone on that one. Like, there's no like, oh, this one and then this is this. It's like, no, 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 no. 200 to 250. You can't look at that amount and go like, that's not a full cup. You can't really. You know what I mean? Like, you can try, and I wouldn't be able to be on your side. My perspective is that's a full cup. That's definitely a full cup. I don't care what anyone says. That's a full cup. Yeah, that'll take a while to sip on. I can enjoy it. That's a full cup. Okay. So it's like start there. And it's like, right. But it's like, where are we going with this? You know what I mean? Like they already have this cup Nespresso, right? And it's like, it's not though. It's not really. You know what I mean? Like it's not. And the Sprover is great. I love, but then at the same time, it's not though. It's 160 milliliters. It's not really a full cup. I like it though. It's good, but it's not. It's not a full cup. You know what I mean? And so, like, of course, and they're asking for a lot. Like, we all know that. They want, like, cheap coffee pods, right? You know what I mean? And they're asking for, like, 200 to 250 milliliters, bare minimum. Like, there's no debating that. You're going to have to give them that. And they want it in 25 to 30 seconds. And they want it to taste like good enough specialty, at a barista coffee shop, right? Right? Like, and it's like good enough. And I'm like, yeah, because they don't understand like that's a lot more than what you think, and it's like right, good enough. It's good enough. You know what I mean? The customer is what it is. Okay, you have to understand what the customer is. They don't understand the love, care, and attention. They don't understand all this stuff, and that's not their job to understand at all. That's for us, the coffee enthusiasts and hobbyists. Okay, stop it. Stop shitting on them. Understand we're the weirdos a little bit in this. They're okay. All right. You got to understand that part. Now, we're going to move on. All right. I've already been kind of going on about it, but it's like this is a setup. And if you want to be able to know what the market is and you want to know all this, because like the market effectively has not gone away. Clearly, there's another market opening up for like effectively another innovation within inside of this area that Nespresso kind of became the king of, right? It's like that makes total sense. You have to understand that. So it's like clearly there are people that want that. They want it fast, okay, fine, but they also want it better than what they currently have. Okay. Okay, I can get behind that. It's like how do you do it? But there's only really a couple of ways to really maybe get anything better. If they want it kind of espresso like, then we're effectively talking about something entirely different, right? But not really totally. All right, so hold your horses, the basic rundown, and then I'll go into detail. The rundown turns into we need about 25 grams of coffee. We're not going to be doing anything other than espresso like coffee. We're aiming for 200 milliliters minimum at the end of it. And we're aiming for an entirely different coffee pod. Which, ouch. But also kind of understandable considering Nespresso themselves have to make a bigger one and effectively have the same amount to be able to get kind of like the same amount of coffee out. Like there's nothing you can really get around on that side to be able to have good tasting coffee at the end of it, right? But we can't use their dome, we can't use their stuff. So it then boiled down into you either can get like a V60-esque, like a miniature V60, or you can do a two puck like espresso kind of thing. Okay. Which that doesn't sound like okay, whoa. What? And it's like, well, this is basically what you've got. All right. Like you can't do theirs, but what you can do is make something really cheap and efficient and fast to manufacture, and two 12.5s or one little miniature V60 that you can kind of pierce at the bottom and then kind of do like a sort of, prong that's sort of like when you mash, oranges or something to try and get any of that juice out. And so there are little indents there that allow for it to come out. Then it was like, well, with the V60, I can make you know, a plus and multiplying symbol cross, but then put a circle in the center. Now it's like, why a circle? Well, it basically makes it so when you pierce it on a aluminum sheet and then you roll it and then you crimp it and then you do one little spot weld, it's really fast and efficient. So it's, like you're gonna cut it, you're gonna roll it into a little circle or not circle, V60 funnel, but then you crimp it along the side. That way it's sealed. But then you spot weld at the top, and then that allows for this little piece that you cut there and that you're gonna bend over to then that you pierce and a little circle that all point everything down and kind of sort of angle it in towards where the coffee is. Then it was like, well, here's a little cotton swab. It's not really a cotton swab. It's not really the face cotton things. But it's like, that's almost exactly the right size. So if I make it the right size for that, then it's like, well, then I could have 6, 8, 9, whatever it is on the outside. And then I have 6, 5, 4, 3. I typically go with 3, but 5 might be still just as good, right? But there's more things to fail. It's a whole, give me a second kind of thing, sort of situation, because we'll talk about the other two, right? And so it's like, right, so we have the ones on the outside, you want to circle towards the center, and then you have one right there smack dab in the center. That way you have an even distribution, an even spray, and easily enough, you can quite well soak all the beans and extract quite a bit, right? Because it's like a tapering, okay? But here's the thing. Like a spur it doesn't really have a perfect anything, in terms of how it is you're supposed to do it, right? But it's still 25 to 30 seconds, which is why I aimed at that. And it's a 1 to 10 ratio. But instead of a 1 to 10, we'd be dropping it down a little bit. We'd be doing a pour over. We'd probably start at a 6 bar. We're going to have to dump up to about like that 12 to try and really try and get into beans essentially that were ground. They're going to be a larger grind size, but we're trying to force a higher pressure to extract a little bit more during those few moments you really can. And then after that, you're going to allow it to drain back down to 6, and you're going to do a high flow rate, right? So it's like you're going to push to a high pressure, you want to get that extraction up, and then you're going to allow it to then flow very quickly like a pour over, which makes total sense, right? Easy stuff. It comes out one side. It should be well extracted and pretty easy, I would imagine, to then push that. Now the prongs, ooh, whoa, 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 we're talking about a distribution plate. I was saying, no, no, no. The reason why I have the cotton, basically flat, little screen, cotton screen. I mean, hey, your cloth still works as a filter. I'm pretty sure it could be used as a screen like this. So it's like, well, that'll soak it pretty well. It's a little better for the environment. It's cheap. You can buy them in tons. So cheap, right? And then, well, yes, the prongs are something of a point of failure. Okay, fine. So, right. But on the way up from the tank, through the boiler, towards where the prongs are, we're gonna have a little temperature sensor for the actual prong area, and then a little heat exchanger. So we can either run a secondary pump around instead of through the boiler, around the boiler through this to cool it, or if we want to get it even hotter, we can then heat it up, which means temperature control, pressure controls, now become more dynamic, which, well, it's a thin sheet of aluminum. And it's like, yeah. Luckily, though, that's fine, but 12 is max. It can handle going around the prongs and it'll squeeze into it as you introduce more pressure. All right, and that'll help seal it. But past the point, it just rips. It just rips aluminum. Aluminum just rips. Like that's literally what the problem is. Like making it thicker is actually more difficult, both in terms of cost of manufacture, but also like why do you need to go past 12? I mean, we're only going to be doing it for a brief moment. No reason to do more. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like no reason to really go too far on that, right? Super fast, super simple, easy, that kind of thing, right? Now, it seems like it's an easier sell as a like mini V60, ooh yeah, no, oh, that's it, right? But it's like the it is and it isn't. It really depends on what you want to do. Okay. It'll totally work as is. And as you slide it in, you're just gonna go and pull down, but this will go slide a little bit further in as you pull down, and it'll have these angled, line up, and then it'll go flat, and then squeeze. All right, simple stuff. You can easily do that. It'll work day in, day out. It's just things can fail when there's more of something. So if we want to go back to just the 3 prongs like they already have, but you want to do the 2 pucks, it's honestly about as simple as it can get. One in the center and it sprays outward. It just fires up and then it sprays off to both sides. You still get the temperature control, you still get pressure control, but then it'll spray out and then those two combine into one where your coffee is going to be. Screens can still be added, it still works. It's pretty darn simple to just roll something along the side that's a thin strip of aluminum and then crimp around the edges, kind of stuff, and it'll still work. In fact, if anything, it's even simpler and it'll cost even less to manufacture the darn machine and make the pods. So it's up to whomever wants to ultimately decide. I would be pitching this to someone most likely, but for me, it's like because the coffee scene is what it is, I would imagine a V60 be really fun in terms of like, hey, right? And then you can slide it in, and oh, I got my little mini V60 uh espresso-ish. I mean, it's espresso-like for sure. It's not really a real espresso. You know what I mean? Like it's a pour over, like a sprover, but it's gonna have a bit of a, an espresso, but like the higher speeds of flow rate, not necessarily the higher pressure, is what's going to give you like all of that you're looking for, because it'll be much more akin to a pour over versus an actual espresso, which is like a sprover, what you want, but of course it will have espresso like quality, right? Like there's only so much you can really do, like you can't you know, especially for 25 grams, and we're trying to get effectively something that amount. You know what I mean? And it's like for 200 milliliters, depending on the coffee we're talking about, it could be too much or too little. What we're talking about for a pour over, and in fact, it depends on that grind size and all the rest of it. And it's a real hard sell to be like, here's 50 grams or 60 grams of coffee in a pod, and that's a chunkster of, you know what I mean? That's a bit of a chunkster in terms of like a pod. So uh, for me, it's like it makes sense because of the high flow rate, and truthfully, you'll be able to taste good extraction. but also, the elephant in the room is, of course, it's not going to be an espresso. It won't taste as good as if you decided to do something yourself, which is already what we're talking about, but it will taste miles better than what is currently there for us to have. And the only other elephant in the room is obviously you got to make sure it's possible for anybody to make the pods. Like that's the point of it. Like it's like right, we want to make sure everybody has a chance. No offense to an espresso, but kind of a little bit of offense, like hey, we do it really well. We know what we're doing, right? But we also know that nobody really liked how that went down with Nespresso. And of course, if we're going to introduce to you a brand new pod, you probably don't want to do, this, you know, thing where that, kind of left a little bit of a bad taste, right? And the same thing with the two pods. So it really depends on what you want to end up doing. Like, it's going to be cheaper, sure, but at the same time, it's like we're talking like also marketability after a point. Like the two, and it's like super simple and easy, makes total sense. It's honestly, it'll work really pretty darn well. Um, be really cheap. I don't know. I mean, it depends on what people would want to do. Personally, I'd sell both of them because it's like, well, yeah, no, here's this and here's that, and then here is effectively like, hey, throw us like 10, 15%, something like that. You know what I mean? And you all can use the same thing, and I don't even care. And you know what I mean? And I get the whole pressure thing, but then like the pressure thing turns into, well, hmm, hmm. Eh. For me, it's like, so it's pretty static. We're only going to be able to change a little bit about that, which turns into like, oh, so this is the coffee you're putting in. Right, so you'll, like, scan it or whatever, right, on the thing, and then, if you ever update every so often, on the internet, then it's like, right, then it knows more or less roughly as good as it could, 'cause there's altitude difference, there's, water changes. There's a couple of things there, but it's like, well, within a given degree of acceptance, of variability, right? That then allows for you to tailor it for temperature and pressure. And then there's you that goes, oh, I want this or whatever, right? And then it's still within 200, 300, but it's like, it's pretty locked steady. So what we're talking about really is like these slight changes at most. But that also means, hey, everybody, here's an open source. Here's a website. Go over to here. Hey, I now have this idea for this recipe. I now have this, like, I did this change and I got way better results than whatever they were doing. It's like, oh, thank you. I'm so happy. You didn't have to say it that way, but I'm so happy that you're able to get something better. Eh, thanks, guys. Super. You know what I mean? But then on the other side of it, it's like, well, that's great. That fosters a community. You get a whole bunch of people to then, kind of like really be all about whatever it is that this is for this machine. And that drives marketability. That drives more talking. That drives more of a kind of virality online to this given type of machine and a community of people that love it and really swear by it. The caveat then turns into, okay, we want you usable. We hear you. Here's ours, and here's the, whatever we need to do. for like everybody to be able to do their own version, but it's like this is the basic specs and so on. So that way, here's everything that you can really kind of do. And then eventually someone's going to hack into it. You know what I mean? Like it's fairly analog for what it's worth. That's going to be there the way I would set up just because it's cheap. Like I don't know if people know this, but like if they want me to sell it to them for $200 to $300, and effectively I'm saying that it's going to be like a dimmer switch, yeah, mod that's controlled like that, which means it's like its function is pretty consistently set like this, but we'd be like slightly altering it depending on a given flash memory kind of thing controller, which that's cheap. We can do cheap on that. That's, like not even $100, right? But like I'm in every way imagining I've got out the Raspberry Pi and Adrenos. I've got out the servos and I've got this blow off valve from a car or something that's like electronically controlled changes of at this all these different timing variables for different pressures and I'm like, when you posted this, did you show everybody that you have a electronically controllable pressure valve here? Because that's not the equivalent of what we're talking about. Do you know that this is sort of an impossible recipe for the vast majority of people? I feel like you knew this when you said you get way better results than us, and I feel angry about that a little frustrated for sure. Like I tried really hard here, and you basically got like an extra $300 worth of equipment attached to this thing, and that's not fair. You know what I mean? Ooh, some spicy tea. I wouldn't do it as a company or even as an employee, but it would be in my head, and I'd talk about that a little bit. You know what I mean? I'd hope that someone else would comment it. But otherwise, it's like, but that is unfair to us. You know, like that's pretty unfair. Anyways, but if that's the case, then it's like we've seen what the community has been saying. And yes, no, I know we talk like this because we're hoity-toity company people. But what if, guys, we released a really special version that has all the bells and whistles? And it comes with its own tamp and its own WDT tool and all this cool stuff that makes it so you can reuse the reusable things however you want. And then we sold it to you for, get this, $1,200. Like, I can already see the face. Ugh. 1,200? Yeah. Well, you can see where I come from on that, though, right? Because it's like, no, I have to source and it's a niche. That's a niche, right? So it's like I have to go basically make a bunch of reusable things, right? And then I have to make the two versions. Then I have to also make a tamp, which wasn't really a thing, and then all this other stuff that has to go with it. And all of it has to look good, perform well, last a really long time, right? And so, yeah, it's, like the volume of cell is probably not going to be the same. It's what it is, unfortunately, after a point. Marketing wise, it makes sense. And like, of course, eventually down the road, it comes into this is the halfway in between because enough people finally bought the 1200 that meant that, like, oh, well, now we can release the like 777 because haha memes and you won big time, all that. Right? That's kind of how that works for me, anyways. Because like that makes total sense in terms of like a marketing kind of like gimmick. It's like, hey, 777. Ooh, right? It's 77 cents just cuz. And it's like, you know what? That's different enough that I like it, right? Like that's honestly like that'll trigger that little this company's something, huh? They know. They know that that's funny. They know, that's good. I like that. I see what you're doing, right? Yeah. That's nice. So, but like that's effectively going to be well there are now some plastic bits here instead of like full metal there, right? And then it's like well, yeah, so you're not getting this attached to it, which that one would have the steam wand, right? Right, and then like that has the water hookup. It's $1,200. You can hook it up to your water line if you wanted to, right? Got it. You know, you got to do it. And, then, and here's a filter if you wanted it, right? Like, you know, and then it's like it can do both of them, either one of the things, if you, whichever one you look for, right? So that would work, right? Or is this one? It's this specific one that you're getting. You don't get both of them. You get the one. You don't get the wand. So there's no steam for you. You're not. You're not getting the super uber down to like microsecond, and pressure changes. If that's what you're looking for, like maybe this second or something. You know what I mean? Which might maybe. I mean, it's more like maybe this second. Really, honestly, it's like at most second. Yeah. Eh, right? And then it's like, flow control, this is our max for this, but this one, oh boy, if you wanted to really let her rip, here it is, right? Go for it. But do you need it? Like, I mean, come on. Do you need like 50 milliliters a second or something? Like, or whatever it would be, right? Like, probably not, I would imagine, right? Yeah. Like, here's 2.5 seconds. Here's your coffee. Oh, it's ready, is it? No, but okay, sure. But I also think about it like, okay, well, I mean, someone might out there decide to go like, well, it's like 12 par. Okay, I guess. What does that mean? What's 160 C in Fahrenheit again? Because of course they're the American or something, right? Even I'm the American going like, just use 100. What do you need 160 C? Uh, well, it's the max flow rate. I don't know if this is gonna work for you. I'm just letting you know. I'm just, I'm just okay. Well, we're gonna move on. Higher heat does not. I mean, it kind of does mean more extraction, but then there's gonna be a limit there, right? It's like, but no, no, no. You can drop flow rate below, and then you can rapidly see. Like the reason why I think about it like that, if it was 50 milliliters, it turns into well, actually, for me. I can go down to like 1 milliliter a second and then try and go up to 50 within like this specified time frame and then drop it back down to a lower milliliter that allows for a sudden increase of pressure to be more easily maintained faster and a flow rate that you want at the right time that you're looking for. Makes total sense for that if that's a very specific recipe, right, that you're following. But I mean, I don't think it would be something that the vast majority of people would probably really care that much about, right? And so I was like, oh, here's $777, and you don't probably need that. You don't probably ever need that. But if you do, then you do, right? And you would know because you got deep into the rabbit hole, into the rabbit hole of coffee hobbyist you got. Next thing you know, yeah, I need that now. Just for this one specific or I make this type of recipe every time. And so you've now got a full community of exactingly kind of sort of a cross between espresso and pour over, like a spur, but also more of a like a regular it's like a really strong pour over, I think, at that point would be what it would be, right? You know what I mean? It can be a really strong pour over, I feel. But with a little bit of that extra thicky kind of espresso extraction style, which the piercing at the bottom is only because it's like, well, when I roll it over, then that goes into um I'd use like a cloth again because if I'm gonna buy tons of them, just because I have them as a screen at the top doesn't mean I can't have it at the bottom. I mean, I'm gonna crimp it anyways, I don't see what the issue is really here. I'm just, spitballing a little. I could probably, for the V60 one, you know what I mean? Or even, you know, I'd stick it on, a plate of aluminum, a sheet, right? And then and then a little crimpy crimp and a little bendy bend, like, the reverse of like the, can opener thing. And I got one on one side, one on the other. It probably work. I mean, it's just spitballing, If it works, it works, right? It's the dispersion plate thing. Oh yeah, the three prong thing. Yeah, I don't know how well that would end up going. Like the more places you have to pierce. Okay, so then you know that like you can't do it all at once. You have to pierce the one in the center, which is the why it's that has the hole there, because then it then would spread that out and become tensioned, and then you'd get the ones just outside of the one in the center, and then you get the ones on the ends. And the ones on the end would then be cupped by like something on the outside, but it's not to pierce, it's to hold the edges. Same thing if you push it down as it slides, it'll help move and then do like a little like rocker arm situation where it goes over. So think like the crook of your arm, and then when you push up on your shoulder, like your fist kind of goes in, right? And so like that's like what a rocker arm does. It's like a little crescent like movement where the pivot point's in the center. And so when you push on one side, it'll push down or in wherever it is you're looking for, right? And so as you push down, that actually helps to add like extra, specificity of where you're going to pierce first, and then the second and then third piercing. It all depends though, because like a V60 is much larger. That'll have to be a much larger hole. But like the two smaller ones means you can get away with less of that. But how many do you need? And then it turns into, well, you can probably get away with maybe six, maybe six outside, three in the center, and then you have to kind of spray it with like the prongs inward, kind of like an out, slight out, but then two in, and then the three in the center for the two one here, the two pucks, right, versus the V60, the two pucks. You have to spray outwardly, right, and there's still a cotton filter there, and you still gotta need to have that like little point there to help you be able to hold on one side, right? Like so, not point, but like the little metal thing to kind of hold the container, pretty rigid, right? So it should still consistently and adequately, I feel, allow for it to pierce evenly and evenly disperse as much water. Now, the puck part needs a little bit of a gap. Okay, so some people wouldn't maybe like that, right? But for me, it's like, well, that makes a lot more sense in terms of like how you'd have to go about it. Because if you get a little bit of that that cotton filter on the other side of that little stiffening screen, the little diagonal and regular cross with the one in the center, then that means you have a little bit of a gap, and then the water can spray into that gap and then push in into where the filter is, which then will go into where the filter is on the other side, and then, evenly distribute its pressure, which is by far simpler. But the one at the top doesn't really necessarily need that. You'd have so many different ones spraying together that it'd be just easy sort of a thing, right? But again, you do have a okay, so which one do you want to do? If you sell both of them, then it's you don't need to choose, and then it's really pretty simple to just easily manufacture in mass. To me, it would turn into which one do you like? And customers love choice. Instead of like, it needs to only be this one, they'll argue whatever they want, right? But like, choice is good. I just worry about making sure, as the engineer mind that I am, which one is the one that I need to more often make sure that I have replacement parts easily, readily available. I want it to be repairable. So if anything were to fail, user or quality control or some damn reason or design just wasn't accounting for some given stress after all of our tests, then like we'd be able to easily repair that and quickly make it ready to go, right? So that's usually like a hinge thing, or it's usually like the prongs, possibly the thickness, maybe for the aluminum, maybe a type of gasketing around the prongs that only is there after it pierces, which is like full extension, but then when you start lifting it up, it then lifts it or pushes it forward a little bit more and then reseats that little gasket seal, and then it like then slips back inside of itself, kind of a thing. I just want to make sure it'll last and it'll endure and it has a high reliability. And if it fails, it's easy to replace, like a screw or a simple, like thumb turn and then take it out and then put another one in and then thumb turn or screw. Easy. All day, super simple. That way, nobody feels like everything is bad and it's super hard and nothing's, right? I don't want it to be considered like a planned obsolescence thing. I want it to be more of a, there's only so much we can do. You've had this for 12 years. What did you expect? This is unfair. So and you used it like 4 or 5 times a day for 12 years. That's a little unrealistic, okay? Please give us a rest on that one. You know what I mean? Like versus it failed in 3 weeks. Oh shit. Which is really what my reaction is gonna be like, 3 weeks? Did you drop it? Like, I wanna know. Like, honestly, I'd just like to know. Like, what happened, please? Like, it's not like we wouldn't test. I'd like to know. Just a little, please. So I know they're not going to. It's like we have to replace it or whatever, but still, it's that thing where it's like, I'm gonna literally look over this thing over and over and over just to know why this failure happened, whatever it is. And then, like, this is version 2, whatever that was. Yeah. That's all I've got. Because, yeah, I don't like things like not being easily repaired or replaced, right? It's just a thing. Because it's like, well, that little thing would already be in our manufacturing process, which then means it's like, well, there's a freaking lot of them. Who cares? Yeet. Here you go. Hey, here's another one if you want. I'll give you, like, 2 of them, of these whatever it is, right? Right, not the whole dang machine, but, like, this is the part that's likely maybe to possibly fail, and it's like, "Here's 2 extra." Alright, there you go. Meanwhile, well, hmm, do. Ooh, I know what I did wrong. Uh-oh. Oh, because you always know there's a given user error problem after a point, like, "Did you put this in correctly?" "No, I tried to slam this down when it was not correctly in." It broke, didn't it? No, not well, I mean, a lit it's y this is like someone off to the side that's watching. "Did you break it? Did you break Get out of here." And yes, you can hear it, right? It's like, "It's gonna be okay." They got replaced. I see the replay. That's fair. And that's like user error and then like likely to be overstressed or well, not overstressed, but take a lot beating, and stress kind of stuff that again, it still could technically be a user error. Like I poured boiling hot ass water and then I got out this water heater. Why the fuck from my kettle that I disassembled? Disassembled a kettle? You disassembled a what? And then I turned it on. Why? What is what? What is going on here? Is it broken? Well, I mean, they had an easy replacement part. This review. This review. This one review. And they have a video for it? Oh my goodness. This is not normal application use, but I'm glad you were able to replace it. We would recommend from this point forward not doing that, as you would likely damage, moving forward your machine. You know what I mean? Anyways, it's almost been an hour. Please like, subscribe, comment if you found it funny and all that in terms of like the design or have any critiques or whatever else. Please share it, hit that notification bell. Sorry that I could only really do the audio recording, but it takes a really long time to upload anything in any aspect. Truthfully, that isn't that. And then on top of it, sometimes I just don't feel like being on camera. All right, have a good one. Bye.